So now let's talk about the encryption SDK. I'll be really honest with you, we've reached some very advanced concepts. Although the exam will be asking you about the encryption SDK, you don't need to know exactly how it works, you need to know when you should be using it. But in this lecture, for those who are curious, I want to give you an idea of how it works as well, because I think it can be tremendously helpful for you in your job to be talking about the encryption SDK. So we've seen that KMS has a limit of 4 kilobytes over the data we can encrypt. But obviously, KMS does a lot of stuff. It allows us to encrypt EBS volume, S3 files up to 5 terabytes. So how does it do it? Well, to do it, we need to use something called envelope encryption. Now, envelope encryption is super cumbersome to implement. And so the reason why it's so cumbersome, not because it's hard, but because it's just a lot of steps, there is the AWS encryption SDK that was created by AWS, and it will help us use envelope encryption with some very simple APIs. We'll get to see this in the next hands-on using the CLI. So it is very different from the S3 encryption SDK. It uses a different message format. It's just a note. It's a bit confusing, I know, but there is the S3 encryption SDK when you deal with S3, and for any other case, you can use the AWS encryption SDK. Maybe one day they'll merge, who knows. The encryption SDK also exists as a CLI tool for our practice, so we'll just use that in the next lecture and install it. Now, for those who came just for the exam and just don't want to have to deal to understand exactly how encryption SDK works, basically anytime the exam will ask you, hey, we have over 4 kilobytes of data, so maybe we have 1 megabyte of data, and it needs to be encrypted using KMS, how do I do this? The response is use the encryption SDK. That also means use envelope encryption. And the API call that will be done by the envelope encryption is going to be called the generate data key API. So if you just wanted to remember one thing, that would be that one line, okay? For anything over 4 kilobytes of data, use generate data key API or the encryption SDK. That's it for if you just want to know how to pass the exam with this. Now let's just do the interesting bit, which is how encryption SDK works. Let me just tell you, I try my best to make a clear diagram, but it may be complicated. And if you don't understand anything, just don't worry. Just know what I said last slides and that'll be enough for you. So we have our clients, and it could be a CLI and SDK, and we have a big file, for example, 10 megabyte file, and we want to encrypt that file using KMS. The first thing we want to do is to call KMS with an API call called generate data key. And generate data key is an API call in which we have to specify a CMK in KMS, so a user CMK, for example, and say we'd like KMS to generate a data key for us using the CMK. So KMS will first perform IAM permissions, making sure we do have access to the CMK key and making sure we can do the generate data key API. And then if it's happy, it says, okay, I will generate a data key for you, and I will also encrypt that data key with the CMK. So as you can see here, it did two things. It did generate a data key and encrypt the data key with the CMK. And that's going to be the tricky bit. The data key itself is plain text and it's sent back straight to the client. So now the client has the plain text data key that was created by KMS. And it will also send back the encrypted data key. So we have the plain text data key and the encrypted data key. We'll see the use case of all of them in very, very soon. So now using the plain text data key, we're able to perform client-side encryption. So this is great because all the encryption happens client-side. We were given a data key and we'll use an algorithm to encrypt it. It could be whatever you want for the algorithm. And using that big file and that plain text data key with encrypted stuff client-side. So it's not KMS who did the hard work, it is our client, which is great. And we have obtained an encrypted file. Please note that that encrypted file was encrypted using the data key. Now, if we take this, then we remove the plain text DEK, the data encryption key. So it's gone. So have you seen, we just deleted it, we threw it away. And so when we have left is the encrypted data key and the encrypted file. And this all together is going to be the final file we'll use. So this file has the encrypted file using the data key that we just threw away. And we have the encrypted data key that was encrypted using the CMK. Because there are two levels of encryption, like one encryption into another encryption, this is called an envelope encryption. So this is the details. Now we have this final file. How can we get back to the big file? Let's talk about decrypting envelope data. So we have our client and it has the encrypted DEK and the encrypted file. And he wants to decrypt the data. So we'll talk to KMS and say, hey, here is the encrypted DEK file. Please decrypt it for me. So the KMS will look into the CMK, it will check the IAM permissions and say, okay, I can decrypt whatever you sent me using the CMK. Remember, encrypted data key should be something very light, so less than 4 kilobytes, so this is fine. So we get back the plain text data key. And now that we have the plain text data key back, we're able to perform client-side decryption using this plain text data encryption key, and we get back the big file. And so that's the idea of how the decryption works for the DEK. As you can see, the decryption always happens client-side as well. So using this data key trick, we're able to just get one little key that will allow us to encrypt the data, but we have to remember that the encrypted data key must live alongside whatever we encrypted, otherwise we cannot decrypt it back. So this is just for the curious, for you to know how envelope encryption works. To me, it's a great engineering piece. It's really, really smart. If you don't understand anything, do not worry. Just know that we use the generate data key API and the decrypt API in combination to use envelope encryption. The good news is that the encryption SDK by Amazon does all this complex stuff for us, and it's just a simple API, as we'll see in the next lecture.